Welcome to Wills and Spills, where I debunk common wills and estate myths over one cocktail at a time. The cocktail I'll be making today is called the Bronx, and the myth is jointly owned property can be left to whomever you wish in your will. Now, to help me debunk this myth, I've got Marilyn Wai, who's a senior associate in our property team at Hunt & Hunt Lawyers. Thanks for joining us, Marilyn.
Thank you, Linda.
So before we debunk this myth, let's take a step back. What are the different forms of property ownership?
There are many forms of property ownership. It really depends on how you want to structure it. There's sole ownership, joint tenancy, tenancy in common, property ownership through a company, trust property ownership. For the purposes of debunking this myth today, I will discuss the first three types of ownership. Sole ownership. This is where the property is solely in your personal name. Joint tenancy is where you own the property equally with other people, often used by couples. Joint tenancy comes with a right of survivorship, meaning if one of the joint tenants die, his or her share automatically passes to the surviving joint tenant. Tenants in common is where two or more people co-own a property in defined shares that they can dispose of as they wish. In other words, if one co-owner passes away, that person's share of property forms part of his or her estate.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that, Marilyn. You would have seen I did a spill. This is why it's called Wills and Spills. So basically, if you do own a property jointly, you cannot give that to someone in your will because it passes to the survivor.
Yeah, that's right. So if the will maker wants to give their share of the property in their will, they either have to own it solely in their name or as tenants in common.
Okay, so if clients want to leave their share of the property to another person, can the joint tenancy be severed, like end the joint tenancy?
I often get asked whether a joint tenancy can be severed after the owners have owned the property for some time. This may arise in a few scenarios. For instance, where there's separation or divorce, or where a few siblings inherited a property from their parents and they wish to sever the tie, or when partnership has gone sour and the owners no longer wish to jointly own the property. The answer is yes, it is possible to sever a joint tenancy, meaning you can change the ownership from joint tenancy to tenants in common. A joint tenancy can either be severed by mutual consent or it can be severed unilaterally without the consent of the other joint tenants. Severing a joint tenancy means the owner ends up owning a specific share of the property and can leave their share to anyone in their will. Provided the share each person holds in the property remains the same, then there's no duty implication from severing the joint tenancy.
Oh, well, that's good to know. Thanks for that. Let me just shake this. The other question we often get asked, sometimes clients say to me, look, I'd rather just transfer my property now to my children or to my spouse rather than gifting it to them in the will. If they were to do that now, are there any sort of tax implications with that?
So if this is a family home or primary place of residence, no consideration is involved, then spouses or de facto partners are usually exempt from stamp duty. However, if it's an investment residential property or any other property like commercial or industrial, then stamp duty will apply as usual, and this is calculated on the market value of the property at the time of transfer. In all other scenarios involving a transfer of property to a family member, whether there's money exchanged or it's a gift, stamp duty will still apply. In transferring a property, there are tax implications such as capital gains tax. So it's best to speak to a lawyer before you do any transfer of properties.
Thanks, Marilyn. So as you can see, it's not always that straightforward. If you have any wills and estates questions or property law questions, please reach out to us at Hunt & Hunt Lawyers. Let's have a drink. Thank you. Cheers.